The Irish actor Colin Farrell has been on a roll the past few years, winning himself a pair of Golden Globe Awards, one for transforming himself in the Batman spin-off series The Penguin, and the other for his tender role in the movie The Banshees of Inisherin. Now Colin is continuing his winning streak by playing a guy who keeps losing. In the new film Ballad of a Small Player, Colin's character calls himself Lord Doyle. His gambling addiction leads him to Macau, often referred to as the Las Vegas of China, where he searches for redemption on his way down a spiral of shame. How are you?
I'm good, Tom. How about yourself?
I'm not too bad. Congratulations on the film. I really loved it.
Thanks a million.
You were 2 months, I heard, in the hotel in Macau,
Yeah.
sort of living amongst the gamblers and the high rollers that you were portraying in this film.
Yeah.
I wonder what you could tell me you noticed about them and something that I might not know and what you might have learned from them.
Well, none of the high rollers were on my floor. I can tell you that because they had a designated area, which was one very elaborately decorated, wide, um, very gaudy, very brightly lit, and bright red curtains. And they had their own corridor that had these suites that you can't actually rent for the night, that they only give them away for free. For free, meaning that you're coming and you're dropping a few million at the baccarat table. Yeah, they put down some money. I mean, the Chinese are really, when it comes to gambling, they don't mess around.
Were you looking around? Were you keeping an eye on the gamblers? Were you
I
observing? Were you taking
mean,
stuff in?
most of the casino floor gamblers, players, they were there kind of having a good time. They wouldn't be placing huge bets. The really interesting stuff goes on behind the scenes in more private baccarat rooms. And I was taken to one of the rooms by one of the casino floor managers, and he showed me this really, again, really elaborate marble and gold room. And there was two baccarat tables. When we went in, there was nobody there. And he said on any given night, there can be, a few players on each table, and sometimes they know each other, oftentimes they don't. But he said last night we had two gentlemen, and they came individually, but they arrived together. Um, and they were each at a table. They didn't know each other. And he said the house had a good night last night. And I said, well, do you mind me asking what's a good night for the house? And he said, well, after 4 hours of playing, each gentleman played 4 hours. The house was up 24 million.
Jeez Louise.
I went, 24 million. And he said, yeah. And he said, that wasn't even the biggest night we have, but yeah, it was a good night for the house, 24 million. So that was obviously on average 12 million that each fella dropped at the table. It's madness the amount of money they play for over there.
The character you play here, Lord Doyle, is frenetic and frantic and hooked and addicted to gambling. Are you watching any of that behavior that and it's making its way? I don't know what kind of actor you are, but is any making that into you at all?
No, because I didn't see any of the degree of distress and the desperation that my character in this film is living through. I didn't see anywhere. Even those guys that dropped 12 million each on the baccarat table that night, that was just a drop in the ocean for them. They weren't completely distressed when they left the hotel. They were just a bit annoyed it wasn't a great night. So I just went off the script. It was really cool to be around the environment. Having said that, to be living in a casino while we were shooting in a casino meant that I was just surrounded by the kind of tonality of the gambling world, the energy of the gambling world, the sounds of the gambling world, the visual presence of all these machines and all these tables and people. So I was definitely moving constantly, even in my days off, through the world that Doyle was inhabiting. And that I found, I lean into that, it means the experience of bringing the film to life becomes more all-encompassing than it may be if we were shooting on sets. Certain production designers are extraordinary. I never am anything less than awed by what they do and the sets that they build. But there is something, of course, to walking from outside on a brightly lit day into a big warehouse soundstage and then into a set that's supposed to be at night. I don't know if it matters that much in regard to your performance and what you have to do, because it's all make believe, of course. But I just do lean into the comfort of being surrounded by the environment, whether it's in Bruges or whether it's the Banshees of Inisherin, they were also places that even on your days off, you couldn't escape the world of the film, and that was very much the case here.
When I was reading the director of this, Edward Berger, he said about you, he said, the character of Lloyd Doyle fascinated him because he's so fragile inside. And, quote, I feel like the best person to express that with his eyes is Colin Farrell. So the first question I have on that, is that something you've heard before?
No.
The second question I have on that, now that we got that out of the way,
Yeah.
is how much of that I sort of know where he's coming from. I was thinking of films I've seen you in, and again, I don't have a repository of acting methodology behind me, but I have seen you play characters like Lord Doyle, and you brought up in Bruges there as well, characters who give off a sense of deep confidence and ability, but you can kind of tell behind your eyes, Colin, that they are gentle or sensitive or afraid. I was reading an interview with Brendan Gleeson, and he was talking about seeing you in The Penguin. And he said, there he was, Colin, behind all that makeup and all that CGI, but I knew it was him by his eyes. Is that acting? Is that intentional? Is that something you can control? Is that something you relate to?
You're talking about the result, like the audience's experience, whether the audience is Brendan or the audience is Edward, because even though you're working with a director, the director is kind of in many ways, as are the crew, the first audience that experienced the film, the first audience that experienced the scenes, albeit in a fractured way. Um, so that's the result. That's the accumulation of whatever work you do as an actor before you go before the camera. So with that in mind, I don't think of it in those terms. I'm not really result oriented. I could possibly be a little bit more, but I'm just not. I'm really just moment oriented. I'm just into the moment being the whole life of the character within the context of the story, of course, and even without the story, even before the story starts. But I never have any answers. Like people have asked, what happens at the end of The Lobster? Does he gouge his eyes out or not? And I'm like, I absolutely don't know. I only have a theory, and my theory is not just because I've walked in this man's shoes for 2 hours. I don't have any more purchase with that theory than the audience do.
Fair enough, and I know what you mean. What I'm curious about is what goes on behind it. Like I'm just trying. When you said earlier, like I just try to get into the script, I go off the script. I have a hard time understanding it.
It's life. Life gets in on you, like it does us all. I've spoken to writers and I've asked them, how much of their life experience and how much of their persona and how much of their particular perspective and outlook on the world and what it is to be a human being moving through the world makes its way into the work. And they said all of it. It's all. So you can't really separate the dancer from the dance, as the saying goes. So without thinking, I don't have a particular set of tools that I lean on. I just lean on the fact that I've been a human being for 49 years, and I've shared this world with 8 billion people, some very close to me, some very distant that I'll never meet. But there is such a confluence of energy and emotions and thoughts and hopes and joys and pains and violences and pieces. There's such a confluence that you just, by virtue of being a human and by having a little bit of empathy, but also by having an imagination, you just take what you've experienced and you look at the world around you and then you apply all that to whatever the script is. But anything like music, poetry, art, films, everything you've ever heard, seen, read, tasted, smelt, visited, it all gets filtered in to the work.
That's a beautiful answer. And were you that at the beginning? Like another thing I find interesting about this movie is you're in it with Tilda Swinton.
You're not on the run, are you?
No. No. There's no great mystery to it. It's simply that every genuine high roller values discretion.
Oh.
Yes, discretion is our code.
Oh, it is it?
It is, actually.
Because actually, you look, if I were to say, like a bit of a show-off for someone on the lam.
Tilda Swinton also in the first movie you were ever in 1999.
Yeah.
In the war zone. Did that Colin then in '99 have the perspective you have right now? What was that young Colin like first
God,
day on
no.
set? It's a big deal to him, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was really exciting. The most exciting thing about that at the time was that I was already aware of Ray Winston. I had seen Scum, an incredible film that he had done, set in a a kind of a borstal, a kind of a early offenders prison, and I was really nervous to meet Ray and to work with him. And I had a couple of scenes on that. Yeah, every step of the way has been very exciting. Getting the job on Ballycus Angel, a TV show I did for 2 years, was very exciting. I did a commercial for a chocolate bar when I was 17, 18. That was super exciting. Remember the first caravan that I had for my wardrobe was super exciting. So they've all, every single stage, I am very unapathetic about it all.
Would you have had nerves on the first
Oh, I
movie?
still have nerves. That hasn't.
Go away.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, are you joking me? I never go to work and feel that I know what I'm doing, ever, or that. Yeah,
But I don't know about you. You won awards, and I would have thought.
doesn't matter. No, I don't really. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Hold on to me now while I have to get this question out. I was reading that when you were a young man, you were a footballer. In Canada, you played soccer, and your father and your uncle played professional
Yeah.
football, and that you were good. How serious were you about it?
I wasn't as serious, I don't think, as I thought I was. But I loved it. And it was a way in which my father and I could kind of bond. It was kind of a common language that we had, the language of football, talking about the game, watching the game on TV. And then he was the coach of the team I did. But I was handy enough. Until I was about 13 or 14.
I've often talked to people who started out as athletes and good athletes about whether there might be a connection between that and the artistic work they end up doing a little bit later. And the answer more often is yes than no, which I've been surprised by. I talked to a hockey player one time who said to me one time, he said, the reason I can act and play hockey is because as a hockey player, when you get off the rink, when you get off the ice, you have to forget whether you won or lost and just go in the next day and do it the same way again.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd put it to you, growing up in an athletic house surrounded by athletes and growing up a little bit in athletics yourself, would you say there was anything from those days that made you a better actor or got in there in some way?
There is a performance aspect to it. Certainly at the level my dad played. I mean, because he played sometimes in front of 30 or 40,000 people during his career. And there was definitely a kind of a performative aspect to that. But I just think how, the things you apply as an athlete have to be as an athlete. More so they have to be as an athlete than they have to be as an actor. But discipline, which can be very helpful as an actor, but also passion, and also really good, like if I talk about football, soccer, really good soccer players can read the game. They can read the game. They can pick up on patterns in other players. And maybe there's a crossover there with acting, the picking up of patterns based of energy and based off the observance of repetition. Most sport is at a certain stage, at a certain level, comes down to psychology and comes down to the player's ability to remain calm in moments of great tension and great consequence. And we see that a lot in tennis, break points, match points that are reversed. So with that in mind as well, at times psychology is obviously an incredibly important tool. I mean, you talk about poetry or music or whatever, that's all kind of, it's emotional, but it's also psychological, and it's just imprinting oneself with other perspectives and other ideologies. And so maybe there's a crossover there, yeah.
How come you didn't stick with the soccer?
Just life went in a different direction.
You sort of fell out of love with it?
Oh, there wasn't a particular day. I can't even remember. There wasn't a particular day I stopped playing. It wasn't like I'm stopping playing now. I just ended up petering out. My interest petered out a little bit.
How did acting go in the family? I know your sister introduced you to it. How did were people delighted you were acting?
No, my dad wasn't that interested in it, to be honest with you. And that wasn't because he wanted me to be a footballer. But he wasn't. It didn't seem like a serious thing and I'm not sure that it is. And I'm not sure that if it's not, that's a problem, but it didn't seem like a serious kind of, that it had any job prospects, But my sister was the first person, as you said. Yeah, Catherine, she went to college to study theater when she was about 16 or 17. And it was the first time that I was exposed to the idea that it was something you could pursue. Because I loved films up until that point, but I didn't think that it was something that you could actually go somewhere and immerse yourself in an environment where people were trying to learn a quote unquote craft, the craft of acting. So she was the first exposure I had to it. And I ended up going to the same college that she went to about 5 years after that.
It's been amazing to see how lauded your work has been over the past even 5 or 10 years. I went through the whole sort of run of your career getting ready for this interview, and seeing the work that you've done, like with the Banshees of Inisherin, as you mentioned, and we talked about the Penguin, and this role is excellent as well, and you've won awards and Oscar and Emmy nominations and all that stuff too. Have you had a moment to be able to take in some of the joy?
I get joy from doing the work, from being on a film set with, 200 or 300 crew members and 5 or 10 cast members, and trying to figure out how to bring a story to life. That's the joy I get from the acting world. And then outside of that, I've a ton of joy with, I'm lucky enough to be a father of 2 great boys and have a couple of mates in my life.
Lovely to meet you. Thanks a lot for making the time.
All the best, man. Take care.